That's how he lured me into being trafficked, was bringing me back dope. And these crazy promises and love and connection and all the things that make me feel really stupid to share with you. The truth is, I was just desperate and broken enough to believe what he had to say. And really, what else was I going to do? Like, what else was I going to
And
do?
he won your trust over
Right
immediately
away.
because he came back.
That's right. Every single problem I had was fixed in that moment, and he fixed it. And he was the only person I knew.
The drugs were real, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was great.
Oh, yeah. So he became my trafficker after a few weeks. So he like groomed me into.
So to talk about that process,
Yeah.
so you say groom. Okay, we are back with another episode of Get a Grip podcast. I have Vanessa Torres with us today. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
I met Vanessa at my previous job. She came in. It was a very corporate job, and she did a luncheon. What company was that with?
Freedom a la carte.
Freedom a la carte,
doing
yep.
lunch and learns to
Yes.
teach people about human trafficking and trauma.
Yes, and I decided that I was going to sign up and do it, just because it was, I don't know. I wanted to hear what the person coming had to say, and I also wanted to see my coworkers' reactions and like how they felt about it. So that's where we met.
Yep.
And I don't think we've done anything together. We've talked about it. We've talked about like doing stuff since. I just don't think we ever did.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here
So
today.
now we're doing this. So that's really cool. Let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
For Vanessa, where'd you grow up? How were you raised?
Yeah.
And what did that look like?
Okay. Are you ready for this ride?
I am so ready.
I'm from Nelsonville. Do you know Nelsonville?
Yep.
It's like Southeast Ohio. It's a small town.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot going on down there. And I grew up in a family that, we were deeply in poverty, and there was a lot of domestic violence, drugs, and chaos, all of my upbringing. And I didn't really know how not normal that was until a lot of years later. So my first experience with the police, I was about 4 or 5 years old, and they kicked in the front door and put a gun to my mom's head and put her to the ground. And so all of the messages that I was receiving about the police are bad or we don't call the police all just got really affirmed, really validated that we don't call the police and this is why.
Here's why.
So even when I got out of that life and I was in sobriety, I still couldn't call the police right away. Like that rewiring takes a minute.
Yeah.
Takes a minute.
Yeah. I still feel the same way about certain cops and yeah, it does take a minute. I've got almost 9 years and I still have my thoughts about things like that.
And some of those are valid because there are bad things that happen on a systemic level. Mm-hmm. So some of that's valid, but some of our wiring also needs adjusted.
Yes, correct.
So my house, like that door should have been kicked in. Like there was a lot of stuff going on in my house that was not okay. It was not safe. It was not happy. It was not healthy.
Do you mind sharing what some of that stuff was?
Sure. Drug dealing and domestic violence, fighting, just all the stuff that is messy and chaotic and causes a lot of trauma in all of us. And we don't talk about trauma or getting any kind of help or resources with the things that happen. So you just kind of learn to live with it. And the way we lived with it was by using something, drinking, smoking, whatever we can get our hands on. Self-medicating in any way. And all of us have done different things to self-medicate. And all of us have gone down paths that were not healthy, all but one of us. There's
How many
one of us.
How many siblings?
So I grew up with 6 brothers in the house. 3 of them are my half-brothers. The other 3 are my brother's brothers.
Okay.
And none of them are connected to my actual dad. So, yeah, a little bit messy. But so we're living in poverty, and we have so many mouths to feed and so much chaos. So most of us have gone down a path that was not great. One of us has done pretty good, but still has their own issues.
Sure.
But all of us have lost our kids. Most of us have ended up in jail. We've all gotten our kids back, but just going through all of that, and just imagine the generational trauma and drug addiction that gets passed on. So like my son has been connected to an unhealthy lifestyle earlier on in his life, but still has effects of it today. And he's 17 now. and he was 2 when I got sober. So it's interesting how hard it is to break the chains.
I was going to say, and I really want to ask you this. You have a 17-year-old.
I do.
I just last week spoke to the 8th graders at Grandview Heights High School. I go in, I tell my story.
Yeah,
It's
I
not a
think I
scared
saw
straight. It's none of that. It's just, here's my experience. Here's some education.
Yes.
You know, if you pick up an Adderall from a buddy to study for an exam and you get pulled over and get caught with that Adderall without a prescription, that's a felony. Like so I give them little educational tips.
Yes.
We want to take a moment to announce an exciting partnership with K&B Clothing Line, a brand that truly aligns with our visions and dedication to recovery. We all have a past and a story to tell, and Live Inspired K&B Clothing Line believes that every story deserves to be told without shame. They're also extremely invested in the recovery community, and it shows in their clothing line. Every piece, just like the one I'm wearing here, carries a powerful message inspiring people to never give up. Own it, wear it, be inspirational. Go to www.liveinspiredknb.com and use code GETAGRIP for 10% off your first purchase. What did that discussion look like with your child? Because you are you come off as a very like tell it how it is kind of person.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what did you say to your kid?
Yeah. So there was years of conversation because when he's 4 and 5, 6, 7, those are different conversations than how I talk to him today.
Yes.
And so all of these years, I haven't been holding the truth. I've just been like, or maybe I have been holding the truth. It's just tailoring what should be said at this time, what makes the most sense. Because there's this thing that has happened is I've traumatized him and made him afraid of the world by sharing too much at a time. And so I've had to pull that back and really try to be careful about what I share. So today, he knows almost everything. There's a couple of things he doesn't know because he doesn't need to know. It's not actually his business. It's not going to help his life. It's not going to teach him anything. But for the most part, he knows pretty much everything. So today, he actually responds in a way like he has some of this information and uses it in his life. And what I mean by that is he knows about drug addiction. So he's careful about what he puts into his body. He does smoke, and I don't love that, but I also... I can't say that I hate it either.
Right.
Because I actually kind of think it might help him. Take that off the air if you want to, but
No,
that's just where I'm at.
That's the truth.
He's 17 and he has some mental health challenges. And since I have such a challenge navigating the system around doctors and how I know that people are overprescribed and the actual solution is not tailored to the actual problem, it's tailored to a symptom. Like that's where I have a hard time putting him in front of the right people to get the right things done for the actual problem. So for him to smoke a little bit, and when I was 17, I was already in and out of jail, got DUIs, all kinds of crazy things. And not that I'm not really trying to justify it, but at the same time, I can't say I hate it.
But he's honest with you about it.
He's honest with me about it.
That's the big thing.
And all these other things that he's honest with me about, I think has came from these conversations that I've had with him all of these years. And even when I don't want to tell him something, I don't act like things don't happen. I'll literally say, that's for a conversation at another time.
Yeah.
Like, or that's a part of the story that's not for you to know. Like, I'm honest about that piece of it as well. So I'm not like tucking it away like it didn't happen. And that doesn't work.
No, that's great. That open dialogue and like you said, it's years of conversations because certain things at certain times. Yeah. Sorry, I threw you off track there with that question, but continue on.
I prefer the back and forth. So there was conversations that he would specifically ask me about, especially around, like he would ask me questions about domestic violence, some experiences that I've had with family members. And so he doesn't know all of like who did what. He just knows that it happened. So now today he will come to me with, I think there's a domestic violence situation in my friend's household. What do I do?
Interesting.
And isn't that neat?
Yeah.
And then he'll say things like, I really want to know how to be in a healthy relationship. What does consent mean? Just those types of things.
Yeah, that's great.
And then he'll say things like, I want to be the first one in my family not to drink. And I'm like, you cannot be my kid because I love alcohol.
Yeah, go for it, please.
That never stopped. I always have liked alcohol, but the path that it takes me down is why I don't drink. It's not because I stopped liking it. And so when he says things like that, I'm like, just do the best you can. And I don't want to too much like say, like, I want you not to drink because I'm afraid he won't bring it to me, you know?
Right. Then he won't be as
So he
honest.
won't be as honest.
Yeah.
So back to my childhood.
Yes.
So they kick in the door, put my mom to the ground, and all for good reason. And some of my first conversations with the police is, you can't ask me questions without my mom. Like, I was trained. Like, all of us are trained. And so that went on my entire life, as we never called the police. I was in, like I said, some domestic violence situations, and I literally went over to the phone and would pick it up, and I would dial 911, and I just could not hit that second one. And instead, I took the beating. And that's just so crazy to think about now, and how that was the better option, was to take the beating. Like, it's just bizarre. So I had some really bad things happen to me when I was a little girl. I had this man creeping into my bedroom doing things to me that shouldn't happen to anybody ever. And it really distorted my perception of the world.
This is a
And
random
it was
person.
my brother's dad.
Okay.
And so, not a random person. I thought he was my dad at the time. I learned when I was about 12 years old and he moved out. That's when I learned he was not my dad.
Okay.
So confusing. Like, he's doing these things to me. I think he's my dad. We don't talk about anything in the house. I can't
Right.
call the police about anything.
Yeah.
All of these secrets and grossness. And it's like the whole time I know, like, that I'm not doing anything wrong, but I also don't know what to do. And I just know that it just doesn't feel right. So I just kind of get locked into this dark world. So when I'm 12 and 13 years old and I pick up King Cobra for the first time, I don't know if you've ever drank King Cobra, but it was like freedom. It wasn't just like I drank because people around me were drinking. That was kind of like a piece of it. But once I drank, I become free. So why wouldn't I do that? You know, that's the first time in my life that I felt like I could breathe in this world.
Was that the first time you
First
picked
time.
up a drink or a drug?
Yeah, I was about 12, 13
And it
years
was
old.
a King Cobra?
Yes. And listen, I started at the bottom and I pretty much stayed there. Like, I never really made it to top shelf. I don't even know what's up there anymore. But King Cobra, cheap, easy to get, and got the job done.
Yeah.
That was really how I felt about
Yeah.
it. And so I didn't start drinking all the time right away because I was 12, 13 years old, so I couldn't get it all the time. But I knew what I needed. I knew where to go to get it. I just couldn't get there all the time.
Were you planning at that age?
I was thinking about it,
Yeah,
planning, or
like
just,
thinking like
waiting
when,
for.
yeah,
Yes.
when's the next time I
Yes.
can have a drink?
I was very much an opportunist.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's one, got it. So I
Damn.
would just
At that,
drink when I could.
at 12, yeah.
Yeah, think about
to
that, like-
think like that.
Yeah, when I look at my son, when he's 12, a lot different than my 12.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for that. And I also look back and I have a little sense of sadness for my 12-year-old girl, for myself when I was 12, on like that was the best option for me. And I truly believe that drinking alcohol, doing dope, smoking weed, all have kept me alive. Like, I truly believe that I would have committed suicide had I not had these other options to get me
Interesting.
through, like, without a doubt. And so I actually was just working with someone who was suicidal last week, like really suicidal, ate a whole bottle of pills. And somebody I was talking with was like, they're talking about hitting their marijuana pen, and I don't want them to do that. I'm like, that might keep them alive. Like, I don't know if they should do it or not for sure, but it might keep them alive.
It's an interesting subject you bring up right now because I currently am battling my own mental health stuff. So
Yeah.
my mom's side is totally screwed up. She died of an overdose 5 years ago. Her mom committed suicide. Her dad died of cirrhosis of the liver. So like there's
Yeah.
a lot of mental
Lineage.
health crap going on there.
Yeah.
And growing up as a kid, obviously I self-medicated too.
Yeah.
But I knew something was like off upstairs, but
Right.
I never was taken to the doctor. I was never diagnosed. I was never put on medication. It was never, and I say that because my dad, on the other hand, was a Vietnam War vet. He was drafted. So he's a pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Great guy,
Yeah.
amazing man. But I'm not sure that he understood mental health and that it could be a problem for me based off of my mom's history, right? So as a kid, I never went to a doctor. And like when my dad passed away, something triggered in my head and like I started having panic attacks and I had all these things that never happened before started happening and it freaked me out.
Yeah.
And so like I have to start going and seeing a doctor and working on these things. And so
Right.
to your point, like, yes, it's not me hitting a dab pen because I'm an alcoholic,
Right.
but like if I need to get on medication, or if a doctor prescribes me medication that's going to help a panic disorder or help depression or whatever, like that's my business.
Yeah.
And as long as I
Absolutely.
take it as prescribed, you know,
Yeah.
that's what needs to be done. And I'm doing that at 34 years old
Yeah.
for the first time.
Yeah.
So it's
That's tough.
interesting. It's interesting.
It's tough, and I really hope that you find the right combination.
I've just been,
Um,
it's funny because even in sobriety, like I would just white knuckle the
sure.
whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I have ups and downs, but they're not like super extreme, but I found a way to make it work.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
lot of the time it was just diving into my work, becoming a workaholic
Yeah.
to avoid whatever the hell was going on in my head.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm happy you're on the path, man.
Yeah. No,
So
it's,
my
go ahead.
my dad is a vet too, and has had serious issues his whole life. He like to the point where he couldn't raise us kids, and there were many of us apparently. They keep coming up saying, "I think I might be your brother." What? Like, where'd you even come from? He just passed away a couple of weeks ago, and
Really?
what a bizarre set of feelings that comes with. And like he raised one of us. He raised my brother, and he and I are close and have always been. But like it really came with weird feelings. And as an addict in recovery, I had just had a surgery. Can I just tell you about this surgery
Yeah,
real quick?
please.
Because
Please.
it was interesting. So I've been sober for 15 years. I have this surgery, and I've always been taught if you're going into having a surgery or even visiting complicated people, to have kind of a plan of action.
Sure.
So I made this plan of action not because I think I needed it, but because I was told to do that.
Yep.
And so I make this plan of action. I go in to have surgery, and I tell my husband I can't have tramadol because that was the first thing that was prescribed to me when I was in high school. That started my opiate addiction.
Okay.
And I was doing other things prior to tramadol, so the combination, I'm sure, didn't help.
Sure.
So I tell him I can't have tramadol. It's not a narcotic, but I still can't have it. And so I wake up out of the surgery, and they offer me Oxycontin right away. And I say, nope, absolutely not. And then my husband says, and I told him no to tramadol. And I looked at him, and I was like, why would you do that? Like, I find that to be interesting because I already had this plan of action. And the reason I can't take tramadol is because history shows
Right.
that I don't do it right.
Right.
I don't take tramadol right.
Correct.
So I share that to share with people in recovery. Like, this disease of alcoholism, this disease of addiction is still inside of me. I just get to manage it. And even managing it, like, I don't suffer through my days trying not to use.
Sure.
But like during these really important
Moments,
times,
yeah.
to have some kind of plan of action because this thing is so tricky. So then 2 days after my surgery, actually every second since I woke up, I was so irritated and angry, and I'm chalking it to I just am like recovering from surgery, not realizing my disease of addiction has been like tapped on, like woken up a little bit. So I'm mad at everybody, and family or not. I go to meetings, and they like I don't like them. Like it's just this
Irritable.
Yes, irritable and discontented.
Is that like a missed opportunity irritability kind of thing? Your disease is telling you, like, you know, you missed one there.
I'm not sure. But what I can tell you is I didn't know it. I didn't know I was like irritated. Like it was just weird how it's so cunning and tricky.
Yeah.
And so a couple of days later, I finally realized that I really wanted to be high. So maybe that's
And
what
that's
you're
why
saying.
yeah.
Yes, that's why I was so irritated.
Yep.
Is I really wanted to be high, and it took me a minute to acknowledge that and be honest about that, because I was worried about. First of all, I didn't notice it in myself, but then once I did notice, I almost didn't want to share it because I'm 15 years sober and
Right.
blah blah blah. Like, so my ego really was trying to take me back out. So anyway,
Wow.
that on top of my dad passing away and being around complicated people, like it's been really rough.
Yeah.
My son's going through hard things, and so I'm just thankful that I've deeply submerged into the solution, or I don't know that I would have made it through these last couple of months
Right.
sober or even alive.
Yeah.
Like it's been tough.
I lost both parents in sobriety, and
I was
I
gonna
mean,
say, yeah.
like, I just had to immerse myself even deeper into recovery, like,
Yeah.
to get through it.
Yeah.
And some days I didn't even know what the fuck to do. I'd have to call someone, and they'd tell me what to do. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
that's right.
because you're so just like, it's
Yeah.
hard. It's
Yeah.
hard.
We're wired one way for all these years, have acted on that wiring. So to do something different is not natural.
Right.
It's not natural.
Right.
So when I took my first drink,
Yeah, take us back to the King
back to
Cobra.
the childhood, took my first drink, I realized that was the answer to all of my problems. Like every problem. If I drank, it was fine.
Was that a thought that went through your head?
Not initially. I just
Like
knew
we
I'm not okay. This makes me okay. So I don't know
Okay.
that I was like
Yep.
thinking it through.
And you're a kid.
It was a kid.
Yeah.
So I was just like, this works. And so when I was about 15, I got a DUI. So I stole a truck, got a DUI, blamed
You stole a truck.
yeah.
What truck?
Well,
Where are you
my,
stealing trucks?
my mom's boyfriend's truck at the time.
Okay.
And I didn't know how to drive it very well because it was a standard. And at
Oh,
the time, I
God.
didn't know how to drive a standard.
And you were drunk?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Wasted. But I don't know if you've ever actually been in Nelsonville, but there's some like trails you can drive trucks on. So that was my goal. So you don't really need to know how to drive
Okay,
very well. You just
gotcha.
go mud running. And it was so much fun. Had a blast. I took my normie friend, my friend who is not an alcoholic, has no substance use disorders. And so we aren't really friends anymore. but it was total chaos and I loved it. Like taking the truck was exciting for me.
Hell yeah.
Going mud running, I was about it. And so I get pulled over and I really blamed the police for pulling me over because they were hidden in a junkyard and I rolled through a stop sign because
You
I couldn't.
fuckers.
It was like, you guys, this is entrapment. Like, what are you doing? And so they pull me over and I get a DUI and I get put on probation. And at this point in time, I'm in high school and the probation officer would come and like visit the school randomly. So, every day I would find like the one person I knew that didn't smoke weed and didn't use anything else. And I would buy her pee off of her. And I would carry her pee in my armpit. Like, no, this is not normal. I don't know if you know this.
To keep
but
it
this
warm.
To keep it warm.
Yeah.
This is not normal behavior. So, like, I'm already.
Damn, you're doing like crazy shit
Already
as a
at-
kid.
at
Yeah,
15.
like you're thinking.
And
Your
because
mind is.
all I know is that I'm not okay when I don't have it. I am okay when I do have it. What do I got to do to get there? So it was at any cost, at any length.
Sure.
And my family's dysfunctional, so like they would give me ideas.
Right.
When I got caught for drinking and driving at 15, they weren't mad that I was drinking and driving. They were mad that I got caught.
Did you blow?
Oh, I don't even remember.
I was gonna say.
I don't even remember.
I didn't know because that was I had
Gosh, that was a lot of years ago.
family
I was
friend
15.
who was an attorney, and as a kid, I remember he like pounded
That's
it into my
funny.
brain. He's like, "Don't blow,
Right.
don't blow,
Right.
don't blow." So that's like never left me.
I tell my son now, don't talk to the police unless I'm there.
Yep.
And I think we have good reason to think
I
that
agree.
regardless. It's not like a sick thinking
I don't think
like
so
I grew
either.
up with. They were saying it because like they didn't want people to know what was going on in the
Yeah.
house. But I'm saying it because things get misinterpreted.
Well, kids can't
And-
say lawyer like adult. I mean, they can, but kids
Right.
kids can't say lawyer like adults can.
Yes.
We say lawyer.
Right.
Kids say, "I'm not saying anything until my parents
Yes.
get here."
Yeah,
so
that's right.
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So I tell him that. And he's got a lot of ego, so I'm sure he would think I know how to do this.
Yeah,
So
I could figure
if
this
that
out.
ever happens, we'll see how it goes. So I would buy her pee and I would carry it around so I could pass drug tests because the idea
How
was
much were you paying for this pee?
like $5.
Okay.
$5
Okay,
a
cool.
pop. And so
Just curious what the going rate was for clean pee.
back in the day,
then, yeah.
there's inflation now, so
Okay.
it could be a lot more now. But the thought was never I should stop. That did not cross my mind. The thought is, how do I get around it?
Yep.
How do I figure it out no matter what? And so as a result, like my disease of alcoholism continued to progress. So it doesn't go backwards. It doesn't get better. It gets worse. So I didn't just smoke weed and drink. Like anything that was put in my path, I would do. And that's everything. At some point in time, I've done everything. And so I'm really grateful I'm not out there now because I would do all the things that are killing people.
I was gonna say,
Sign me up.
how old were you when you were in high school?
So when I was 15, like I started high school, I think 14.
Or I'm sorry, what year was it when you were?
So I graduated 2002.
Okay.
And I did
Okay.
graduate, but
Okay.
it wasn't because I was doing a good job. It's because I'm a good liar and I'm a manipulator and I cheat to get good grades. And I paid a teacher one time to up my grades, so I have good negotiation skills.
Wow.
So put all that on the resume.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really just do what you got to do to get another one. And the darker it gets, the worse I do. I'll just continue to do whatever it takes to get another one. All the things I knew I would never do, I did all of them, including things like when I was growing a whole child, I couldn't turn it off. So he was born opiate addicted. Like, I'm not proud of that, but like it is so much more powerful than me, and I'll do whatever it
Yeah.
takes to get another one. I don't
Yeah.
get to turn it off. I don't have that choice.
When you were in high school, you mentioned crossing paths with other drugs or
Yeah.
substances.
Yeah.
What were some of those?
I would say my
And
favorite was psychedelics.
okay,
Take me all the way out. Take me out
yeah,
in La La Land. I'd end up in the woods. Like, why am I in the
I
woods
did
all
the
the
same
time?
thing.
So bizarre.
Mushrooms, LSD.
Yeah, all of that. Like, completely take me out of it. I often would end up in the woods with whatever. Like, I would be drinking and driving, which I'm not, I'm truly not proud of drinking and driving because I do know how dangerous it is, but I did it a lot. And I'm grateful that I never took anybody else out or
Yeah.
myself out. But I would wake up in my car in the middle of the woods randomly. Like I have no idea where I'm at. My friend and I went out on this 4-wheeler trail in my car, and this is out in Moonville, like way out in Nelsonville.
Moonville.
Moonville, there's Moonville Tunnel.
Okay.
Anybody from down in the area will know what that is.
Okay.
And our car, my car got stuck. Like the front wheels just dropped into this rut. And I couldn't get it out, and it's like midnight. She and I out there, Seagram 7 and Teddy Grahams. I don't know if you like Teddy Grahams, but it's a good combination. And
yeah.
I couldn't get the car out. So literally we walked barefoot all the way out to the main road, ended up in the back of somebody's truck, two guys' trucks to try to get back to town. Like they could have done anything to us.
Right.
And like the things that we live through or that we do, I don't think sometimes we even recognize how lucky we are to be breathing.
Statistically speaking, too.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So you know what we did when we get back to town? Go to the bar. Like we like just bizarre. She's passed out in the back of the truck, and I wake her up to go into the bar.
Hey, time to go drink.
Just crazy
and
stuff.
How old were you then?
Like maybe like 17.
Okay,
18.
and you can just go into this bar and they're gonna serve you.
Small town.
Doesn't
Well,
matter.
I had to
You knew people
shoot pool and beat people to get beer.
Okay.
So I used to be a good pool player.
Okay.
I'm very
so
much
that was
on
your
that.
little hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. And then other things like me and my high school sweetheart was like drinking and cruising, and I was trying to get him to let me drive because I'm a better drunk driver than he is, and that's ridiculous. Believe me, I know how ridiculous that is. But he was like starting to pass out, so he flies off the road, and we sink. This is also out in the middle of nowhere, and we just sink in this like swampy thing where water is coming into our truck, and I'm freaking out. So we're trying to like get rid of the evidence. We're throwing the bottles because we know somebody's going to drive by and help
coming,
us.
Yeah.
So we got to get rid of the evidence. And so this park ranger comes by, and I'm devastated. I'm like, oh no, no park rangers, no cops.
Of course.
And he starts throwing up in front of the park ranger. They end up letting us get back into. They towed us out, let us get back into the car because he was just throwing up because he was so nervous. Like
they bought that?
Just yeah, they came up with it. Like, you must be really nervous. I know that was scary.
Oh my God.
I could not believe it. So we get back in the car and I have to drive because he's passed out.
Right.
I pull up to the bar, he's passed out with the seatbelt on, and I go in the bar and just come out and check on him every now and then. That's the kind of drunk I am.
Jesus.
Like I cannot care about any other person. I will get another one at all cost. Drinking, crack, it doesn't matter what it is. I don't even like crack, but I can't tell you how much I'd smoke. It makes no sense.
I know.
I don't even like it. But
I don't love crack either, but boy, oh boy.
Bring it.
Yeah.
That's what you got. I'm in.
Let's do it.
Wild.
Yeah.
So at some point in time, I made my way to Columbus. And I'll tell you, my last actual physical way I got up here is I was hitchhiking. Have you ever hitchhiked? Mm-mm. Don't start now. The people are very strange out there. So I was hitchhiking, and this ice cream truck pulls up to pick me up. And I'm kind of excited about this. So I'm like, get a little snack, for the road. And he opens up the ice cream truck, and there is no ice cream in there. It is creepy. It's weird. He literally folds out a fold-out chair for me to sit in and drove me from Nelsonville to Columbus. And it was so bizarre.
Did he talk to you?
Yeah, he talked to me. It was creepy.
What did he say?
I don't know what he said. It was just weird, normal conversation, I guess, but weird because it was not safe. It was just weird. So I had like a knife in my hand just in case.
Yeah.
I wanted him to know that.
Sure.
You could see the knife.
Yep.
But I had one hidden as well.
Okay.
Just in case he took the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have to like protect ourselves, and the things that we do to think through that is extreme but necessary. But then you come into recovery, like those things are still there. I still carry a knife. I have one in my car. And every time I go into the courthouse, I have to go back to my car because I keep forgetting that my knife's in my stuff, in my bag. So he drops me off, and I end up in the Bottoms. And the reason I ended up there is because my aunt,
that's your first introduction to Columbus?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. So my first introduction to Columbus was the Bottoms. Wasn't that day. But the time I was introduced was with my aunt, and she introduced me to crack and strip clubs. So that was my only knowledge of Columbus at all, was that life.
Okay.
And so that's why I made my way back up there to a kind of familiar place, because I had $20 to my name and that was it. So I wanted it to go as far as it could go. So I hitchhiked to Columbus to get more. Isn't that crazy?
Jesus.
Like ridiculous.
In an ice cream truck.
In an ice cream truck with no ice cream. Doesn't make any sense.
Wow.
So as I'm clearly out of place in the bottoms, I'm like this white girl from Nelsonville trying to just make my way through the hood, like just
Yep.
target, right?
Oh yeah.
This guy comes up to me, and he's a attractive guy, and he says, ask me if I'm looking for anything, because clearly I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And so I was dope sick, and I gave him my $20, and he went and brought me back drugs.
Wow.
He brought me back dope, heroin. I thought for sure he was going to steal the money. Like, that's what
That's
I would
what
have done.
I thought you were going to tell
Yeah,
me.
that's what I was expecting,
For
but I was
sure.
desperate enough to try. Like,
Yeah.
I had to figure I'd do something. I didn't know anybody up there. I was literally like sitting on a curb, like, I don't know what to do.
Give it a shot.
Yeah. And so he brings me back dope, and he became my trafficker.
Really?
That's how he lured me into being trafficked, was bringing me back dope. And these crazy promises and love and connection and all the things that make me feel really stupid to share with you. The truth is, I was just desperate and broken enough to believe what he had to say, and really, what else was I going to do? Like, what else was I going to do?
And he won your trust over
Right
immediately
away.
because he came back.
That's right. Every single problem I had was fixed in that moment, and he fixed it. And he was the only person I knew.
The drugs were real, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was great.
Oh, yeah. So he became my trafficker after a few weeks. So he, like, groomed me into...
So to talk about that process,
Yeah.
so you say groomed. I mean, I understand what it means.
Yeah.
But, obviously he was, I guess I'll say, knight in shining armor
Yes.
that day.
Yeah.
And he earned your trust by bringing you back the drugs that
Yep.
you paid for. Because, like you said, you thought he was going to take off.
Yeah.
So these next 2 to 3 weeks
Yep.
where he's grooming you, what does that look like?
Yeah. It looks like somebody that's taking care of me, cares about me, showing these actions of, like, giving me a place to stay, which, by the way, was not good places to stay, but it was better than the street.
Yep.
When I look back, I think there was one time we literally slept on a porch together. How romantic. My standards have
Well,
now changed.
Is there like a campfire or something, or do you light some
No,
candles?
we froze.
Or
We were freezing.
okay,
It was the
Okay,
worst.
great.
And he fought this person for me one day. He told me not to go to these certain houses because they weren't good for whatever reason. The drugs weren't good. They were being looked at by the police. Real or not, I have no idea.
Right.
So like that was his way of having my back. And he would say things like, "You're so beautiful. How did you get up here? I'm so lucky to have you. I'm going to make you my wifey." Ugh, just makes me so sick to say those words.
But
At the
in the
moment,
moment,
it was everything.
it was like, oh my God, this person cares.
Yeah.
Like they're here
Yeah.
with me. They'll take care of me. He fought someone for me. He slept with me in this freezing cold. He was with me. I mean, but
That's right.
he was
right.
there. He
Have you
was
heard
there.
of trauma bonding?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I have.
It's like really a complicated symptom, I guess, or result.
Explain it for our viewers
to the
what
best of
trauma
my
bonding
ability,
is. Yeah.
It's actually a chemical connection that happens in the brain. It's like these attachment and bonding chemicals get dysregulated when abuse happens. And so that bonding chemical that is meant for human bonding, connection, good, healthy bonding, like a mom and a kid or something,
Sure.
gets dysregulated and you become that kind of bonded to the abuser. So the message actually changes from like the chemicals that get released to help us to calm down to survive gets changed to you need this person to survive. So it's actually this chemical thing that
Wow.
happens in the brain. So it's different than morals and values. It's different than just a choice. Because my belief was I walked into it, I deserved it. Like I chose to go back over and over and over again.
Sure.
But like myself knows, like I don't want to go back. I don't know why I keep going back. That's what I have going
Yeah.
on is, I mean, I love them, but I don't know why I keep going back. I know it's not okay, but I keep going back. Like that's to know that there's this chemical bond that happens, which is very similar to a drug. Like you
Yeah.
can't just turn it off.
Right.
Or we'd have turned it off the first time he punched me in the face or put a gun to my head or all these really awful other things that the words would be really triggering. I don't know if you want me to say them or not. 'Cause sometimes there's a line. It's a personal moral line of not trying to traumatize and trigger others. That
No,
I
I mean,
have.
whatever you're comfortable with, I'm comfortable with.
So it's It's about rape. It's about control. It's about being forced into other people raping you. Like, it's about watching other people have these really horrible things happen to you. So when I use, it pauses all of that. It doesn't take any of it away, but it like quiets it. So when I get into recovery, all of that floods. And so it is really hard. It was really hard for me to stay sober, even with the consequences luring, over my head of
Yeah.
going to prison for 5 years.
Lingering. Yeah.
Lingering, thank you. Going to prison for 5 years for drug trafficking, never seeing your son again, like these very real consequences. But when I have all this trauma surfacing, that every thought and memory is connected to something so great and so dark, it's real hard to live in this world sober.
Yeah.
So I needed that wraparound connection. I needed to work on trauma and my substance use disorder and PTSD. I still have PTSD today. It still pops up, and it can be
Sure.
really dark at
Sure.
times. In sobriety, I've wanted to kill myself. And thank God I just happened to be around the right person at the right time to remind me that this is going to pass.
I've been there too.
Yeah, I believe it.
I've been there too.
I can tell you've been through hard things. And even just by the little pieces that you've shared, and that you're just now dabbling into some deeper solutions. So I know in these 9 years,
Right.
you've gone through stuff.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're here today, that's a pretty cool deal, man.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, miracle.
It's a miracle.
Miracle.
Yesterday, someone said, "Hey, Mrs. Miracle." And I was like, "Are you talking to me? Like, why'd you say that? It's weird." But sometimes I need those little nuggets of a reminder that just showing up is such a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially coming from where we come
Yeah.
from.
So after he, I guess we'll say, completed the grooming process,
Did what he was out to do.
and you are now fully, we'll say, trauma bonded, and you trust him, or however you want to interchange those terms. What comes next? What's the next step?
Well, at some point in time, he tells me I have to start repaying him.
And very quickly, what drugs are you dependent on, and what drugs are you using regularly at this time?
Yeah, this was mostly heroin.
Okay.
And anything like that. That's my drug of choice. But then it's just whatever I can get my hands on. And sometimes I would have to smoke crack because I was not allowed to sleep. So you got to smoke crack to stay awake. And my last run, I was awake for 8 days straight. And when I'm awake past midnight today, I'm delirious.
I know.
How
Me
does someone
too.
stay upright for 8 days? So there's real stuff that happens in the body. This is not supposed to happen. Humans aren't supposed to be like that. And so I had some real consequences as a result.
And how old again?
At that time?
Yes.
I was probably 20 something.
Okay.
21, 22.
Okay. Early 20s. Okay.
Yeah, early 20s. Those years from about 15 till I got sober, complete blur. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you in the moment what day it was, what month it was. I could tell you it was warm or cold. It was day or night. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
To think all those years are just such a blur. And I don't remember things very well. And there are people still that come up to me today "Oh my gosh, do you remember?" I'm I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't think I want to. Just keep it moving,
Sure.
So, so at that time, addicted to anything that could get me out of myself and get me through. I would prefer heroin, but then would dabble in other things to keep me awake. So he literally sat across from me one day, my trafficker, and he said, just said it, you have to start paying me back now for what I've given you these last few weeks. And I was confused by this because I didn't know we were on a tab system. I didn't know that he was calculating.
Sure.
I thought we were doing things together. I kind of thought we were already.
We were a team.
Yeah, we were a team. And so he had a different plan in mind the whole time. And so at this point in time, I've seen what he can do to others. I already know he doesn't have to tell me he's going to harm me, although he has plenty of times told me that. But at some point in time, I already know. I don't need him to remind me. He's doing it to me already. Or he'll do it to other people.
So he's already put hands on you and all that.
So not me, but other people.
Okay.
But he did shortly after that because now the dynamic has changed.
Okay.
Now he's not trying to convince me that we're together. He's letting me know that he's in charge,
the boss,
in control,
so to speak.
Yes.
Right.
So he would do really crazy things when he would say, "I'm gonna dog you, bitch." He'd say that word to me. I knew it was coming. As I'm sharing this with you, my heart is racing. My heart is starting to beat faster because I know it's coming, but he would not like I wouldn't know when. I would go all day with him on my back. And like I would go up the stairs and I remember so vividly that feeling of like, is it now? Is it now? Just do it already. Like just do it already. And then he would just wipe me out. And it was awful. And then he would make me apologize to him. One time he pulled me out of a car I was about to get in, dragged me down an alley by my hair, like caveman style. Flip-flops fell off, pulls me into a basement, locks me in this basement. And there's a woman there that has a gun, and they're friends, which so now I would call her a woman trafficker. I didn't know her. Wouldn't have said it then. I would say they were friends. So
Right.
she had the gun, and he held me against my will and had like hit me with a hammer, hit me in my leg and like did something to my ribs, not with a hammer, but he hit me in the ribs. And I'm convinced they were broken, but we don't do hospitals out there. So I don't know if they were broken or not.
Right.
But then he would like make me put my hands on my head and walk across the floor and tell him that he didn't hurt me. Like how crazy. So like
Wow.
just bizarre psychological craziness. Like I was so ready to die. Like just take me out. Like I don't even want to be alive
The
anymore.
pain's too much.
Like what do I do? It was just dark. There wasn't enough heroin in the world to fix it.
No.
You know?
No.
And so like that day he literally I couldn't walk anymore. He picked me up and carried me to a drug dealer's house and got us both dope that we got high on. How bizarre.
Yeah,
Like,
sorry.
just
I'm just going back to the hands on the head, walking in a
Crazy.
line and repeating things or apologizing. Right?
making me
Yeah.
convince him. He said, convince me that I didn't hurt you. Convince me that you're okay. What? First of all, I was not okay. But like it was just this psychological.
And so in your head, you're a smart girl. What are you thinking? Like I think I can do that. I think I can convince him pretty quickly that, or I mean, what?
It was
how?
It was like just do what he says. Like at that point,
Okay.
I was completely,
Okay.
completely obliterated emotionally, physically, spiritually, in every way. So I put my hands on my head and I walked across and I would smile and I would say like I'm good. And then at some point in time, like I couldn't walk anymore. And he would just pick me up and carry me to a dope. And the dope dealers gave us free dope because they felt sorry for me. They would say to you, what are you doing? Say to him, what are you doing? Like mad at him for what he's done. They know he tried to say that a buyer of sex, like a John, had done it. And they all knew he did it and gave us dope so that I could get back out on the block.
Right.
It was awful. So awful. So when I would try to recover from that life, there's a lot of things to recover from. A lot of things, all from childhood all the way up. So like getting sober and getting like serenity and sobriety, happiness and safety and sobriety, not an easy path. It's tough.
How many years? You said you were in your early 20s when this started.
Mm-hmm.
How many years did this go on for with this specific gentleman?
I wouldn't call him a gentleman, but
Or this man, this human,
Yeah,
this
this
thing.
there we go. That one fits right. I would say with him specifically 3 or 4 years, and then I ended up with another trafficker. This one disappeared, and then I ended up with a different trafficker.
So once you end up in that world
Mm-hmm.
and you're being trafficked,
Yeah.
how do you get passed off to another trafficker?
So in some cases there is a pass off, but that's not my case. In my case, I went to jail. My trafficker just kind of like fell off.
Okay.
And then I come out of jail with a bag of whites and I end up back in the bottoms because I don't know anything else. And I see a man at a car passing out clothes. And I literally don't have any. So I just walk over to get clothes and there are 3 or 4 women standing around his car. And so we all ended up being trafficked by him, like a group of people. And so he would have us sell ourselves on Craigslist. And so there was just like a crazy dynamic that came with that, which was if I sell myself, so this isn't walking the block. This isn't getting in and out of cars anymore.
Right.
Now we're making appointments and
Yes.
going into people's domains, whatever that is. Their
Hotels,
hotels,
homes.
crazy stuff. So you could walk in and it be fairly normal and not really harmful.
Sure.
Or you can walk in and they're ready for you. And that's like so terrifying. And then you have the other dynamic of if you sell yourself, you're walking into that. But if you don't sell yourself, like your trafficker, like my trafficker was huge. He was a lot bigger than my first one. And like when he hit you, you felt it. And it lasted what seemed like forever. Just crazy stuff. And then they would my second trafficker would give me just enough dope not to be sick, and I would never see a dollar. Just like I didn't know I was going to be controlled. Like I didn't walk in and sign up to be like, you know what, you can handle all this and just give me a little bit of
Right,
dope.
right.
That was never my plans. This this happens over like an expansion over a period of time. At one point in time, I wouldn't sleep with anybody that wasn't my boyfriend. At one point in time, I would just smoke weed and maybe drink a little. It just expands over a period of time. So then, as my person disintegrates little piece by little piece, it's like what do I even care anymore? What do I even care anymore? Like I really want to put too much dope. I would put too much dope in the needle where I knew I shouldn't wake up,
In
and then I would
hopes, in
wake up again
hopes.
in hopes I wouldn't wake up, and I'd wake up again and are you kidding me, God?
Wake up and you're pissed.
Pissed. Like I do not want to be awake right
Soon
now.
as the stream of consciousness hits, you're like, God
Like, are you
damn it. Are you
freaking
fucking
kidding
kidding me? I'm
Yes,
alive.
I'm alive and don't nearly want to be.
Oh,
It's
God.
wild rides out there. Some of us go on some wild rides.
Yeah, that's,
Um,
that's,
And when
that's
all this is
tough.
going on, my mom has my son. And so, because I had a whole kid somewhere in the middle of this story,
Yep.
and he was with me for the first year of his life, and I was still out there. And so he was in the bottoms with me. And so the things that he was a part of, like that he smelled and seen and was around
Right,
dangerous
sure.
people. And here's the reality is I don't actually know if anything bad happened to him. I can't actually tell you with 100% certainty that
Right.
it did not.
Right.
And that really hurts my heart as I share that with you. I was out trying to get another one, and my mom's from Nelsonville. She hates the city, doesn't ever want to come out of like the country. And so she came up to the bottoms, found my son, took him back home all before I got back to him. And if you think about that, like I thought I was gone for a few hours. Truly, I would have passed a lie detector test. I thought I was gone for a few hours. I was 10 years sober when mom told me I was gone for days and that they were trying to reach out to her or try to find somebody to come get this kid. And mom
Jeez.
ended up with that information. I would have passed a lie detector test saying I was gone for hours. I don't know what happened to me, and I don't know what happened
But you
to him.
believed it was just a couple hours?
Yeah, 1000%. So when she told me that and I was 10 years sober, my first response was, I would never. Like that was my first
Sure.
response. And then it dawned on me, I actually don't know. And I just started sobbing. So it was like, this was new information for me. So mom was confused by why I was crying. She's like, wait, we're past it now. Everything is fine because we're good now. Like we truly are. She thought this was information that was not new. So it hit me like it was
Right.
brand new. And I'm back to the counselor, back to my sponsor, back to trying to work through these really hard things and stay sober through it and not be that way anymore. Like I have to change my path. Otherwise I'll do the same things
Yeah.
I've done. And so really hard things that can surface at times we're not expecting them to. So I got to have I'm just glad I'm submerged around sober people doing sober things to
It's
remind me.
a much easier way to live. I found,
Truly
you know.
is. It might feel harder
Simpler.
sometimes.
It's funny because a lot of the problems I have today, like I'll bitch about stuff, but then I look at it and I'm like, these are actually really good problems to
High
have.
bottom
So
problems.
yeah,
That's right.
like, yeah. So I'm
Thank God.
grateful for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did this go on for before you? Two things.
Mm-hmm.
What would your response be to the, I'm going to say ignorant person
Mm-hmm.
that would say to you, well, Vanessa, why didn't you just leave? Why
Yeah.
didn't you just leave?
Yeah.
Just leave. Just wait for the right time and just leave and don't come back.
Well, back to that trauma bond thing would be part of it.
Okay.
Is that chemical bond that I don't know exists, and I don't really know why I keep going back. The other piece is all the other barriers. Like I'm already no good and worthless, so where am I even going to go? I've already burned all of my bridges due to my addiction, stealing from my mom.
Yeah.
Burned all of my bridges, and then before I was even trafficked, I was in a domestic violence situation. So my family had came and gotten me many times out of this situation. I would keep going back, not knowing why I go back, and so they're done with it. Like I'm not coming to get you anymore. So at some point in time, I can't see any more options.
Right.
And I definitely had no hope. I've never seen anybody recover. I've never seen anybody leave a relationship, like a really unhealthy relationship, and like recover from
Make
that.
it,
So there
yeah.
was no path for me to see. And traffickers and abusers really want to keep us in that nice dark bubble
Yeah.
because then they have control. They are our everything. And as much as I think how crazy that sounds now when you're in the middle of it. Like you can't really see through the weeds kind of thing. And I would love to say it's a long conversation, but we can answer through conversation on why I didn't leave because it's one thing after
No, I'm
another.
just curious because I know people would. I'm sure that's a question somebody might
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a common question,
Right. If you think
and there's
about,
so much more to it than just up and walking
yes,
out. Like you
yes.
don't. It's not how it works.
Even from down to we don't call the cops when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like barrier number
Right.
one. Like
Exactly.
it's a whole system
Yeah.
belief that, yeah. So
Started when you were
yeah,
young.
yeah.
How long did this go on for before? I don't want to say the cycle was broken, but before it you took a different road, or before, you know what I mean, a
I think
change was
the
made.
cycle being broken could be an appropriate term because I didn't actually choose a different road. I got arrested, and that's how my path started into doing something different.
Okay.
But it went on, all of it, I mean, as you say that, it like overwhelms my brain because I'm like, which part are you referring to? So childhood abuse since I was 4, and some type of abuse and drug addiction from 12 to 25.
Okay.
And it just, all of it progressed over time and got worse over time, including myself and drug addiction and the different levels of trauma that I ended up with. I mean, including things literally like people putting guns to my head, just the craziest stuff, totally stripping me completely naked in the middle of the street. Like, how do you recover from that? People walking by, driving by.
For what?
My trafficker
For
did that
punishment?
to prove that he's in control. He says it's because he thinks I'm hiding money, which I wasn't. But even if I was, completely naked in the middle of the daytime in the middle of the bottom. Like,
Jesus.
that's so degrading.
Yeah.
So, like, to say I'm going to call help, like, I don't want to be alive. Who am I going to call?
Right.
Like, I'm lost at that point.
Right.
And I would literally walk into a crack house and grab a towel or a curtain and cover my body up until I could find one of the women on the street to give me clothes. Just like the trauma is very real. The extent of it is unbelievable. And this is only a piece of the story. Like, it's like the times that he would do something to me and like really awful things, and he would come back and just say, I hope that you didn't think I was like hurting you or something. Like just twisted things. And right now, so I still follow, like so the trauma is real. My symptoms from trauma is very real. And so I always try to figure out where he's at today. I haven't been connected to that life for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I just looked him up last week. He's in jail for domestic violence. Again.
Shocker.
Again. And like I have a little guilt of that. Like I should have pressed charges when I could have. Because you can get some really serious sentences now for human trafficking.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish I would have done that. I keep thinking about going and talking to the prosecutor. Just
I don't blame. I mean, I don't blame
like,
you.
Weird
but
stuff.
like you getting out and getting sober and taking your life back is the most important thing,
Yeah.
obviously. But I hear you on
I know.
those thoughts going through your head.
Complex feelings.
Yeah, like I totally understand that.
Yeah.
So where'd we break off? Where did we escape, so to speak? Where did we?
Yeah.
How did that come to be? You know.
So I did have some felony drug charges from Athens County. Got caught selling some pills down there.
Okay.
No recollection of it.
Okay.
But apparently it's a thing.
Couple of them.
A couple.
One of them.
Charges. Is that what
Yeah,
you're asking?
charges.
One or two
Okay.
drug trafficking charges and contempt. I had a ton of other
Trafficking?
things. Drug trafficking charges.
Okay, so like serious shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then lots of other things like Grand Theft Auto and just crazy stuff. And that wasn't even for the truck. I didn't get Grand Theft Auto for the truck when I was 15. But I actually stole this vehicle because I was running from a trafficker and I happened to see a car literally with keys in it in a parking lot, totally random. So I'd gotten and I left. And I was literally leaving to like stay alive. So I don't care. I'd do it again. Okay, so I ended up in jail. And so Catch Court. Have you heard of Catch Court?
Yes.
So it's this anti-human trafficking court docket, specialized court
Yep.
docket that helps to wrap around survivors of human trafficking, to navigate the legal system and connect them to like holistic, whole person resources. So I start there and it began in 2009. I ended up in jail the same month that it began, but I had to deal with these felony charges in Athens. So I get
Was that the first time you went to jail? 2009. Was that your first
No.
like long?
no.
Oh, there have been plenty of other
Lots of in and
just
outs.
here's and there's and
Yes,
okay,
months here,
okay,
months there.
okay, gotcha.
Let's go get some food.
Okay,
So I go, like, Catch Court found me. I didn't seek them out. They were new, for one. For two, I've never heard of a specialized court docket in my life. Nobody that I am aware of has ever offered me any intervention, anything.
okay.
I have a ton of charges
And
on,
you're
on my
sitting
criminal
in the
record.
jail
Yes.
with all these charges,
Yes.
just awaiting your fate.
Sure.
Essentially.
Yep. Yep. And
Okay.
I knew I was going to Marysville. Like, that's
Yeah,
just
I'm going
what
to prison.
Yeah, I'm going to prison.
Yep.
So I'd accepted that. And Catch Court had found me and contacted my judge in Athens. So my Columbus judge contacted my felony judge in Athens, and they denied me first. They said, we're done with her. Like, we're putting her in prison. We don't care. And then he called back. My Columbus judge called again and tried again. And he'll tell you that he used his deep Columbus voice to try to persuade the judge down there to let me go into this program. And so finally he said yes. And because them two judges having that conversation is the reason I can sit here with you today. I wholeheartedly believe that. So Judge Herbert up here and Judge Goldsberry down in Athens.
Okay.
And so I start this program in Catch Court, and they connect me to Amethyst. That's where I did my trauma work, trauma and drug substance use disorder and mental health challenges, like all of that in the same place.
And Amethyst is a female only.
Yeah, and kid, like you could, like mom and kid.
Yep.
That was the attraction for me, is that it was mom and kid.
Yeah.
And I had no real belief that I was going to stay alive or stay sober. But I just know that my other people that was going to other programs ended up doing months at this other program and then would end up at Amethyst anyway. So I'm like, okay, so we'll see how this turns out. So I go to Amethyst, and that's actually how my journey began. It wasn't because I was excited about a new way of living.
Sure.
I had no idea what it would look like. And it was really hard in the beginning because I'm used to, like, fighting everything. Like, you have to fight to stay alive. You have to fight to get your point across. You have to fight to be heard. Like, there's just every reason to fight all the time. But if you fight in treatment, they kick you out. If I get kicked out, I'm going to Marysville for 5 years as part of stipulations. Anything happens with this court or treatment, Marysville 5 years, no questions asked.
Yep.
So, like, I'm truly grateful for that, because I wanted to fight everybody. Like, I was about it. Like, I've never walked away from a fight in my life. I knew, even the times I knew I was going to get beat up, it didn't matter. You still go. You still show up regardless. Sure. When my brothers or family members, they're primarily male, they would come to me and they would say, we got to handle this. And I wouldn't even care why. I'm like, let's go do it. And I would go and I would do it. And then I would.
It's a part of you.
It's part of us.
Yeah.
Part of us. Yeah. And even today, they talk all kinds of crazy. I'm like, what are y'all even talking about? Like, I don't even live that way anymore. And so my first family reunion, which I started for whatever reason, it's actually turning out okay that we're on like a few now.
Okay.
But the first one.
That's good.
I know. Mostly okay. This last one was a train wreck. But the first one, I go and I have it at this public park in Nelsonville, so a small little place. And my brother comes up to me and he was like, this person's about to show up. I need you to beat her ass. And I was like, what? Like, I'm like a few years sober, kind of want to do it. Like, there's a part of me that's like,
sure.
I kind of want to do
But
that.
also, like, I thought we were having a family reunion. Like, what the fuck? Like,
And
what are you talking about?
I haven't fought anybody in a long time.
I mean,
don't even know if I can still hold it down.
what the hell?
And so then I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not doing that. Also, I worked for a court system at that time.
Okay.
Like, so I had plenty of reason not to do it.
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
can't tell you that the little nudge was wasn't there, because it was. But this last one, I didn't do it in a public park, and everybody was on shrooms and smoking weed and drinking, and I'm like, that's cool for y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here, because that's not my vibe anymore. I don't want to be around a bunch of floaty people. So I left, but they had a good time.
Okay.
We had a marshmallow fight before I left, so that was fun. So I may have forgotten where we were at in the story.
That's okay. So we were talking about Catch Court.
Yeah.
You going to jail.
Yes.
What's your opinion on jail as not a form of treatment, but I feel like it's useful in some sense for a lot of people. Like, I needed it. I was the type of addict. I had to be put in cuffs and taken off the street. I was not going to treatment. I was not going to go.
Yeah. Me neither. The people that like walk into detox on purpose baffle me.
Yeah, crazy.
Like, is that real? Are you guys really sober?
I know.
But I can tell you, in my experience, the people that have long-term sobriety have gone to jail. Like, that's been where the beginning of their journey is. I know that's not for everybody. But here's the thing, is there's not a lot of better options to really break someone apart from drugs and even abusers.
Your situation specifically.
Yes. Like I needed to be.
Jail's like kind of great.
Yes, yes. And so I think that we can do better, but I don't see it being done better. And that's my challenge with it is I've been saying it for years actually. Like there's part of me that thinks like I know it's not dignified and I don't want anybody to go start pink slipping people, but like I was totally crazy when I was out there. I was awake for 8 days. I was delirious. I couldn't make a good healthy decision if my life when my life depended on
Right.
it. So like I needed to be separated. Why can I only get separated from drugs and trauma through jail? Like why is that a thing? And
Yeah.
I don't know how I'd feel if someone came and pink slipped me. I'm not sure, but I was okay with jail because it was the better option.
Sure.
But getting completely naked in front of deputies and like all the
Yeah.
craziness that
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I was in a pickle suit for a while, which was needed. It wasn't actually needed
Did you just
because
say you were gonna
I
hurt
did because I
yourself?
wanted my mom to bail me out. And she's like, she called him and said she's suicidal.
And you
She didn't bail
didn't.
me out. She hasn't even been to
And
Al-Anon, but she did not put up with that.
and then what? They grabbed you and
Put me in a
said,
pickle suit.
"Yeah,
It was terrible.
yeah,
And you had to have like a styrofoam plate,
yeah."
no
You've got like
spoons.
nothing. You got no blankets,
freezing.
no pillow,
It's
just in
terrible.
a cell with
But
a.
listen, I stayed sober.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So, like, I do think that it is important and necessary for a lot of people and experiences, but I think we have to do better at some point. Because especially if we're really identifying, and I know we have alcoholism and drug addiction as a disease, why is jail? I mean, I know the criminal behavior that comes with it, so I can see why jail is a part of it or can be. But it's like we just got to find another way, and I don't know that willingness makes sense.
I struggle because I just lost a friend. Shit, it might 2 months ago now. He was in Rise Court and he got shot as a result of going back out and he died. And I remember when I could tell that he was about to go back out. Like I knew.
Yeah.
And I remember urging certain people to lock him up. Lock him up. Please lock him up. Please lock him up. This is not good. Please lock him up. And now he's gone forever. And and there's no coming back from that. So to me it's like jail or gone forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Pick your poison here. Like I'd rather him be in jail or prison or a program and given
Yeah.
another shot than dead.
Yeah.
1000%.
1000%.
And so sometimes, to me at least, that intervention's needed.
Yeah. I've never stopped on purpose.
Yeah.
Never to this day have I stopped on purpose.
Stopped on purpose. Yeah.
Have
No,
to
me either.
be stopped
Me
or,
either.
or totally passed out.
So what is the end of all that trauma and the human trafficking and like how do you break through? Like how do you get through to the other side? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Obviously
Yeah.
you said you went to jail, you had all these charges.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens next? Like how do you get past? How do you get through?
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of things that had to happen at once. One of them was being in front of people who understood what my problem was because I didn't understand what it was. I needed someone to understand it to help me understand it. So I need to know what trauma responses are. I need to know why I keep going back to smoke crack and I don't even like crack. Like, why can't I stop when I start? Like those things that I don't know those answers. I don't even know to think about them. Like, it's just not even in my radar. So I need someone in front of me that can teach me how to be different. And so I needed to do a ton of trauma work, which is not easy, not fun, but I know is necessary. And I was also around people doing trauma work. So for me, that was really important. And just to be around people that could like help me navigate all of that with like empathy and understanding and guide me in directions of solutions and be a solution themselves. Like just seeing people who have stayed sober, who have recovered from trauma, like that's a big deal. Like I've never seen that before.
And that was learned through Catch Court, really.
And Amethyst and
Amethyst
other
and-
recovery places.
Right.
Yeah.
But Catch Court is really the core of it, where they sent you to Amethyst.
They
Yes.
did. Yeah. I had to go, but also I had nowhere else to live, so no other options. So yes, but I was forced back then to it was a requirement to
Yeah.
go to treatment.
Yeah.
They do things a little differently now, and it's good. It's good to evolve. Not everybody needs to go to treatment.
Sure.
I definitely needed to go to treatment.
Yeah. Yeah. We just had a girl on who it was like a similar situation. It was like prison or drug court.
Yep.
And it's crazy for me too because I had the same thing. It was like 5 years in prison or drug court. And it's like, what would Lewis be like if he had done the 5 years,
I know, right?
you
I
know,
think
and
about that.
not taken the drug court? Same with the chick who was just sitting here telling us her story. Like,
Yeah.
what if she went and did, I think she had 10 over her head.
Mm.
You know, how does that change your life versus taking the drug court program and getting
Yeah.
sober?
Yeah.
And for you, obviously, you know, you take catch court as opposed to Marysville prison. You know, you just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know.
That's right. And then at some point in time, Freedom a la carte, which is where I currently work.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
So Freedom was created because there was a gap in service between court and treatment, and like clothing, like there was just a gap in services, and so at some point in time, Freedom was like, our people can't really get jobs because of their criminal records or lack of experience or lack of education. So let's create this job that they can have. So basically, we were actually a food cart that we carried, like drove around in the back of a van and dropped into some area in Columbus and sold food off of it.
Okay.
That's how Freedom a la carte began.
Okay.
So I was one of the first recipients to like being employed on the food cart. I absolutely hated it. Every second of it was miserable. I'm food goofy anyway, and I sure don't know how to have a sober job. Period.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
and so really, it was really challenging. So then about 11 months, 12 months later, I was told to put my resume in at the prosecutor's office, which was my coworkers literally put me in jail. But if it wasn't for Freedom a la carte, like helping me to be able to become employable again, I wouldn't have been like a candidate for this opportunity that the prosecutor's office was offering. Fully aware, not truly qualified, but they wanted to give someone an opportunity. And I could bring my lived experience to the workforce.
Yep.
And that was
So valuable.
that was
God,
amazing.
so
So
valuable.
I had my challenges with doing that. This was a lot of years ago. So to me, this was a new world. And I'm working with attorneys, and they all have a ton of education, and their vocabulary is insane. And I don't know what they're
You
saying.
getting some imposter syndrome going on?
100%.
Yeah.
And like I know
I
a lot
still
of
get
things.
it.
Me too. I know a lot of things I shouldn't do legally, but I don't know all these other words that you guys are talking about. So I stayed there for several years. Like I was there, I think, 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
And then I became a bailiff in a courtroom, which was also really crazy because it's like one of the most trusted positions in the courthouse. And so to have that position, I earned that position through, someone first giving me an opportunity to be different, to show what I'm actually about rather
Yeah.
than the what I am on paper.
Right.
Because my education
Yep.
and my criminal record both say, do not hire her.
Yep.
So when we're given opportunities in a space that we can actually learn and fly, we usually do. Not every one of us all the time, and we have to earn certain spaces. I'm for all that. But like to not rule us out because of these past things, which shouldn't define us. The employees that we become are really incredible. I know that you're one of them, which is really cool. So then, full circle, Freedom comes back to me 3 years ago, I think, and comes and asks me to come back to Freedom to be the Workforce Development Program Manager. Now, don't get me wrong. I was a little bit like, I don't know what that is, for starters.
Right.
Like what? I don't,
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I looked at the job description and I'm like, that I don't know what this stuff is, right? Like this is not in my skill set. And she said, well, we don't want to hire you for that. We want to hire you for your ability to reach another survivor. This is all teachable. And I was like, that sounds good. Like
That's
that
cool.
was cool,
Yeah,
right?
that's
so I
cool.
actually waited. I didn't say yes right away because there was a gap in like medical. Like the city benefits are really good.
Yep.
So to like go to a nonprofit benefits, that was tough to navigate.
Sure.
So I paused for a while, and then finally she came back to me again, and we were just chatting through, and I'm like, it really just makes sense for me to go back to Freedom a la carte. So I was the Workforce Development Program Manager for a while, and now I'm the Director of Programs there. And so I get to supervise people who are running programs that we want to make sure are relevant, creative, trauma competent, and unique to that individual. Like as we're working with an individual, as trauma is complicated, so
Yep.
this person's going to come to the table with something.
Everybody's
that
different.
Everybody's different.
Yep.
And so we live in the gray, which is really cool. So I get to serve on a level that I never thought that I would be able to. I don't know. I just didn't think it would be a thing. And so my job is great. We're working on expanding. I plan to be there for life. Who knows what will happen,
Right. And all that lived experience now
Yeah,
has value.
has such value.
That's the thing.
So I get to like half of the people that I supervise have lived experience and serious trauma. And so like I get to like work with them to help them thrive.
Yeah.
If they thrive, like it's good that they thrive and I'm about it, but also our programs
Yep.
thrive, that they get to reach the
Yep.
people that we serve. It's just a cool deal.
That's so cool.
And
I
I
just
love it.
I love when they take people with lived experience and they can see, like the person can
Yes.
see that they're more than just, like you said, their past or not having a degree or,
That's
a
right.
criminal background or whatever the
Yes.
case may be. Um, and you sharing lived experience with these people, it holds a value.
Yes.
And you can help change lives because of some of the stuff you went through, which sucked terribly. It was
Yes.
awful.
Yes.
But now you can use it to help someone else.
And it's like, it's more than just like understanding where someone's coming from. It's like on a policy level. Like this policy actually rules out people with lived experience. We need to make some adjustments in this
Yep.
policy. It's about the language that we use. So it's like, it's bigger than, it's on a higher level than working in like direct service, which I'm for. And I've done it for years. So now it's like, how can we go bigger with this? Like lived experience value.
It's interesting.
It's cool.
I worked in corrections for 2 years, and I loved it. I was really good at it.
Yeah.
I connected with all the inmates really well. They respected me because
Yeah.
I was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I could de-escalate really well. I
Yeah.
got those one-on-one moments where I could like talk to them about their lives, blah blah blah.
Right.
And I ended up moving on to go into sales. Shortly after that, a probation officer position became open at the Common Pleas Courthouse, and it was like a float position or something, and I was a shoe-in. Everyone was telling me like, "You're a shoe-in, dude.
Yeah.
You are perfect for
Yeah.
this. This is you." And so I had my resume, and then I had like this list of references that was just like unbelievable,
Yeah. Yeah.
unreal people on this list. And because I didn't have a degree and I only had 2 years of corrections experience instead of 8, they couldn't even interview me.
So ridiculous.
Insane.
They lost out. That's their problem.
That's how I
It's
felt.
unfortunate because the people that you could have really reached are probably not being reached, which is unfortunate. Hopefully they're learning, and hopefully they'll make some changes.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Like that is how people get ruled out. I still go back to the CEO of Freedom. Her name's Paula, and I'll say, okay, listen, I know I need some kind of education. What should I be like looking for to stay here long, to grow in this company? And she is still like, you don't need education. Like you are what we want. And then I'm just learning in the company now. I'm still learning and growing, but I'm not formally going in and getting more because I still just have a high school diploma.
Right.
And like I said before, I didn't even do that right. No,
Well, you still got it.
I got it.
You still got it. So
One way
that's
or another.
okay. That's okay. What is a message that you would deliver to someone who is maybe watching this that they're actively being trafficked or they've been through it before, or they think that they're potentially coming across a situation that could turn into that?
Yeah.
What kind of message would you deliver to that person or peoples, I should say?
Yeah. So I appreciate that question. It's always a complicated question
It
for me
is.
because there's just too many tabs that open
Yeah.
all at once. I would say, just FYI, if somebody is withholding your drugs from you to get you to do sexual favors or to do things that you normally wouldn't do, that is human trafficking, and you can get services for that. We might not be able to get a prosecution all the way, but you can get services for that. There are a lot of services for human trafficking victims and survivors now. So finding your local Salvation Army. If you're in Columbus, Freedom a la carte is a great place to come to. There's a place called Sanctuary Night. It's a drop-in center. So if you're actively being trafficked, you can go get a shower and get some clothes and a meal at Sanctuary Night. And any one of us will connect you to the other. So just come to us and we'll talk through it. If you need detox, we'll connect you to detox and get you some services to be able to pay for sober living. Basically, like there's a way to come all the way out of it. If you want that, if you're able to get that right now, like we can like be with you for all of those things.
What if you're not in Columbus?
So you could still look up, you can call the human trafficking hotline and they'll connect you to the local coalition or your closest coalition if there is one. Not everybody has a coalition. Um, and that's 1-888-3737-888. And so you can call that number, or you can even still call Freedom a la carte in Columbus, Ohio, and we will we will connect you with a person as close as possible, or we'll find a way to fly you somewhere, or to get you on a,
Really?
yes, or get you on a Greyhound somewhere that will help you come out of being trafficked.
Wow. I
And
didn't know you guys did that.
we'll do whatever. Like that's where the gray comes in. That's why we
Yeah.
can't be
Yeah.
black and white
Yeah.
because maybe someone's going to call us from Nevada.
Wow.
you know.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to add or
The
anything?
only other piece was to your point, is like we will come anywhere to talk about human trafficking, trauma, substance use disorder, people with lived experience. We can do it on a higher level where we bring in a nice presentation and talk about trauma competent workspace. We can bring in someone with lived experience, which they will absolutely get paid for their expertise. So if there are people who are interested in this, we'll do it virtually or in person. Let us know, and we'll come out and do it. Yeah, everybody should have some information on it, some education on it.
Well, thank you for coming out,
You're welcome.
Mrs. Miracle.
Oh, two
And
days and 2 ribs.
I appreciate it. And, you know, I knew it would be a good episode. And you speak so well, and you've been through so much, and you're killing it, you know.
Thank
And
you. Same to you.
I know you probably hear it a lot, and but you really are. You're doing very well. So
Thank you.
I'm proud of you for
I
what that's
appreciate you saying
worth.
that. It
That's
means a
it.
lot. It
Yeah.
means a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was great. I knew it was going to be great as well. So,
I'm glad you enjoyed
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Thank you.